calm before the storm.
The storm has already started, because with that click, I think the stream is live now. So, welcome to stream, everyone. This is the Go Stadium freestyle meta discussion post charm with a very popular face in the Pokemon Go community, ZoëTwoDots. So, for anyone who is joining, hi Zoe. So, for anyone who's joining from Zoe's community, we are a PvP Discord. We started off with meta discussions and so on, and then slowly developed more into hosting some remote tournaments as well. And we'll have some of the other guys give you in more detail as well in a second. But while we're waiting for people to join, we'll have some discussion about the new updates that are coming up. So Zoe, you made a video about this recently. So let's. I'm going to pull up a video of the newest update where we see the appraisal system and battle mechanics and charge moves changed. So go ahead, share your opinions.
Okay, first of all, I honestly think this change to the appraisal is one of the best quality of life updates, full stop. And I think it's also like the most detailed appraisal system we've ever had in any Pokemon game. Like for the main series games, we have that like little pentagon graph that kind of like fills up parts of the chart, but like we can literally break down if a Pokemon has 3 attack, 4 defense, like whatever it might be with the new system, which is pretty crazy to fully say, hey, this is a whatever percent IV Pokemon. It looks cleaner, it's faster, you can just swipe in between everything and it's like boom, appraise. If you only care about 100%, you can just type into the search bar with, what is it, the 4 asterisks or 4-star, and that's just like boom, there's all your hundos done. And I know I have transferred so many hundos probably in my lifetime by just being like, oh, it's too long to appraise everything individually. So I think this is going to be fantastic, that it's just smooth. And then for the new PvP stuff, I'm really curious to see how that goes, because that's going to be awesome for accessibility, I think. The fact that it's no longer like viciously mashing your phone, or soon will no longer be viciously mashing your phone. Accessibility for players that physically can't do that, people with, arthritis or joint issues or just any other accessibility issues, kids. Like imagine an adult like 1v1 a kid in PvP, like the kid's got no chance to charge up the charge move. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how it all kind of rolls out and flows, and like if it changes the meta too much in like the way that the new charge moves roll out. So yeah.
There's definitely some interesting thoughts. I know the peanut gallery waiting behind us some thoughts on how the new charge move mechanics might work and sort of some of the advantages and disadvantages to those.
Have you messed around with the feature? I downloaded the APK because I couldn't resist, and it is quite nice, to be honest. It's very, very, very useful.
I've downloaded so I've got the spare Android for like live streams and stuff. So I've downloaded, or I just had the APK download on that. So I've used the appraise feature, which is super smooth. But I don't think the PvP feature was active in it, or I just probably didn't test it properly.
No, it wasn't. It hasn't. Well, only the little the CP indication, like the different user interfaces is now live. But
that's a feature that's pretty nice too, though, because once a Pokemon is switched in, it shows the Pokemon name up, and so that's nice because you can tell like a few split seconds earlier what Pokemon they're switching in, which allows you to react a little quicker.
That's cool.
So that's a minor thing that is being glossed over a little bit, but it's pretty nice.
That's going to be massive for strategy.
Yeah, because it lets you switch faster, or like if you have like a charge move queued up, but your mon's about to die, and you're like, well, I can't wait to see what it is. I just have to guess. But now you have that little extra time.
Absolutely, that's going to be awesome.
It should be a really exciting. We'll see if it sort of solves some of the problems they were trying to solve with timed switch, with the paused switching, by just presenting the information sooner.
Also, the fact that you had to listen to the sounds of those fast attack animations. which is so bad.
I would
Trainers'
always like watch
ears were
people.
bleeding all over the world.
There are a handful of things I have refused to do in Pokemon Go, and one of them is play the game with the sound on. So
Same.
it's never gonna get there.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
well, why don't we move forward a little bit? We got a whole bunch of people joining us. We're excited to have you. So today we're working with Zoe on building a freestyle team. You have a tournament upcoming, don't you, Zoe?
Yes, this Friday. Nothing like leaving it to the last minute, hey?
We'll hopefully get you a squad and get you practicing so you can take that down.
Yes,
It's going to be a pretty good tournament too, or a pretty big tournament too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be Sydney squad, and then Brandon Tunn is hosting or co-hosting it. So I think at the moment there's already like 50 people signed up at least, which is pretty good. That's already like massive for I think the Sydney area and everything. So yeah, it's going to be good. Gonna be a lot of good competitors there.
Yeah, and 50 people signed up for a freestyle tournament is remarkable. So that's going to be, one of the larger freestyle tournaments probably ever.
No pressure.
So joining us on the Go Stadium sign, we've got our Go Stadium side to serve as Zoe's shadowy PvP advisors, as she is myself, Alfindel, Tristan, Tiwastel is here. We've got AJ and we've got Polymers. All of us are here to sort of talk a little bit about freestyle, the best PvP format, and sort of walk through what it looks like now, what to expect, and especially what to expect after Charm, which has recently released, and we haven't seen too many tournaments yet, but we'll dive into that in just a little bit.
Magic.
No, I'm excited.
I'm excited.
We're both excited. Everyone's excited.
Everyone's excited. You get a
you get a Clefairy, and you get a Clefairy.
Oh boy. Charm slaps.
Oh man, it has those like embarrassing little hearts too, that it's like I'm getting savaged by this move that's just, look how cute I am. You're like, no.
Exactly. I love it.
Nothing's ever been cute again. So we're going to dive into a little bit of, before we dive into team building, we're going to talk a little bit about freestyle in general, and a little bit about what you see on your screen there. So Tristan, what is that big old list of Pokemon we see on the screen there?
All right, so on the left-hand side, we have, I think it's what we consider 15 of the top freestyle threats. So these are the Pokemon that you'll see most commonly. And these are the Pokemon that ideally you'll want to have like 2 counters for in your team for each of these. So we've got, at the start, we've got kind of the ever-present Medicham, Azumarill, Defense Deoxys, which has been gaining in popularity quite a bit recently due to its unique coverages. And I think just the fact that the EX raids are over, or not EX raids, or yeah, EX raids for it are over. So people are more comfortable investing in their best one as opposed to waiting for a better one. Then you've got the Skarmory and Altaria, the Flyers, which are pretty essential in freestyle. And then you've got the Steel types, Bastiodon, Jirachi, Melmetal, and Probopass, which are all have a little bit of different coverage between them, but are all quite strong mons. Then you have the grass types in Venusaur and Meganium. Also honorable mentions for Tropius, but in the recent metas, Venusaur and Meganium seem to be a bit better positioned. You've got Umbreon, which has seen a bit of a rise recently, just due to some of the shifts, like with Defense Deoxys rising in popularity. Then you've got Lantern, Sableye, also not pictured here, but Haunter is another one we'll want to consider. And then we've put Togekiss on here as kind of a representative for the charm users, but we'll also want to be considering Clefable and Wigglytuff as well. But Togekiss has some kind of unique coverages for a charm user, so that's why we've elected to include that the 15.
Magic. There's a
thanks.
lot of potential.
That kind of nicely segues into what I've kind of would call just sort of some of the general rules about freestyle. And so much focus is put on and the metas that are presented there. But one of the main rules I always sort of like to give folks when we start building a freestyle team, and the number one piece of advice I could give you is you literally can't beat everything.
Yeah.
Just too many options, right?
It's too much, yeah.
Kind of about knowing what you're going to what you're going to expect, what you actually expect in the meta, and then making a call in there. There are as Tristan laid out, Meganium, Tropius, and Venusaur all sort of occupy the same grass spot, but depending on when you play your tournament, you're going to see a whole lot of one or the other.
Yes.
So being able to hedge maybe a matchup here or there, where I would say, like right now, you're more likely to see a Venusaur than the other ones. A confusion user like Jirachi covers that is kind of interesting. Where if it was more Meganiums, you would be like, well, that's a steel is not so good against it because of that earthquake bomb. So hopefully what we'll be able to do is help you with that. One of the other things too that want to keep in mind is just it's about checks as opposed to counters. You're never going to be able to always get your counter on their thing. So we'll keep that in mind when we talk about matchups. But what do you have you played a lot of freestyle tournaments, Zoe? Are you an expert in this area, or is this going to be one of your first forays?
My experience with like freestyle has literally just been at GoFest, where I was like, I want that t-shirt, boys, let's do this. So I got through a couple of rounds of freestyle, but honestly it was like walking to the PvP area and I'm like, Nick, trainer tips, build my team, like what are we doing? And he was like, basically gave me the top 6 picks have been. I grabbed 3 of those and kind of held my breath. I made one of the worst switches in my life. I probably would have done a bit better if I hadn't swapped out, knowing what Pokemon they had coming up. But didn't do too bad. I've mostly played like the themed cups with the Sylph. So at least with that, I think I usually perform a bit better because I have the time to sit down and look at what am I going to be seeing? What typings do I need? What is good against what? Because I think for myself, especially in like when the battle starts, I immediately forget like dual typings and I'm like, damn it, what's that thing weak to? Unless I've done the practice. So with the Open Cup, if it's like, oh, and here's a Altaria, and I'm like, cool, it's flying, and it's just like my brain deletes everything. But if I've done some practice versing that Pokemon, I'm like, oh, cool, I know I need my blah to verse that. So
right. What 3 did you use for that GoFest tournament?
For GoFest, it was oh gosh, now I've forgotten. Azumarill, defense. No, I didn't use my defense form. I had Skarmory, Azumarill, and oh gosh, I have forgotten. Maybe Medicham.
That's a solid team right there.
Yeah.
You're well
The more
prepped.
important question is, did you get your t-shirt?
I got my t-shirt at Chicago, but I didn't. It was someone like basically gave me a t-shirt, the black t-shirt. So it was not earned. I got a keychain in Dortmund for my efforts, so just missed out on the shirt.
Well,
but hey, we can
if
we get this team nice and spicy, Yokohama can earn my own t-shirt.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Let's do it.
Awesome. And lastly, obviously they dropped a bombshell on us. I'm not talking about the switch mechanic, which we will never speak of again. But Charm specifically has done some really interesting things to the meta, hasn't it, AJ?
Yeah, I mean, Charm specifically has reshuffled pretty much everything, and intuitively you'd think Azumarill might drop down a little bit in proverbial stock, but there's some good arguments to be running both Azumarill and a Charm user. and maybe shifting Azumarill more towards your steel type coverage in other areas with like Hydro Pump. There's some major players with Charm, and then some other players that have been effective both well and detrimentally. So Togekiss is listed there in the Freestyle meta. We have a couple others in Clefable and Wigglytuff mainly. I think those are the top 3. I'm going to ask for an assist here from Polymers here, who's been extensively doing some sims in the last few days. I think those are the top 3, right?
Yeah, those are the top 3. And, you know, really, Wigglytuff has some really interesting matchups because of that normal typing. It gives it immunity to resistance to dragon moves with the fairy typing, and as well as ghost with the normal typing, which makes it a really interesting team component, because ghosts are a pretty common component of a lot of freestyle teams as a counter to Defense Deoxys primarily, but also Metacham and now Jirachi as well.
So, you know, with the rise of Charm, we'll probably see a rise in sub-poison types, things like Venusaur, for example, which are still kept in check by the somewhat ubiquitous Jirachi, which I think you have from going to GoFest, right?
I have not caught my Jirachi yet. I'm catching it in Japan because theme. Yeah.
Right. So Jirachi is definitely going up there in the meta, but the only thing really holding it down right now is accessibility. So
yeah, of course.
For perspective, I had a remote tournament here at Ghost Stadium, and I think there was only 1, maybe 2 people that had access to it. And they didn't even run it, so I don't know what their reasons were, but yeah, it's been sprinkled around in some of the other freestyle lobbies so far, and it's got some very interesting coverage.
AJ,
yeah, I wouldn't be
just
surprised if on Friday there's a few of those. I wouldn't be surprised because Brandon was at GoFest. I think there's a couple of like the main Sydney squad who went to GoFest Chicago as well, so they probably do have Jirachi. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least 5.
Well, the good news,
at least 5, yeah.
The good news is it's not required, and arguably nothing is required in freestyle. But it is important to have 1 or 2 counters that deal well with it. So,
yep.
What were you gonna say, Tristan? You were gonna ask
I was gonna say maybe the reason some people didn't use it, even though they had it, is just like a comfort factor, because it was so soon after GoFest, and they just didn't have enough time to really practice with it.
We actually had like an aha moment in Dortmund after. So me, Trainer Tips, and Reversal all went and competed in the same like little PvP thing. And then as we were walking out, like the next group was walking and being like, oh, he just like kicked my ass with Jirachi. And we're like, oh, like none of us had actually thought to even like bust it out or try it yet. We're like, true. Like there's a whole new, you know, Pokemon to be used essentially. See how it performs. And we were like, yeah, we should like immediately got on and be like, okay, I wonder what people are saying about it. Like if it's any good, blah, blah, blah. So
there's definitely it's definitely a difficult Pokemon to use correctly, and it benefits immensely from some of the more advanced PvP techniques, especially piggybacking, given it has a very fast firing charge move, and it has confusion, which if you interrupt confusions, you're gifting a number of sort of free turns. But it also is pretty darn squishy, and if it's in the wrong matchup, it can die very, very fast. It's a good one to be ready for, and to maybe if you have some Ultra friends who've picked one up, play against a few times, because you definitely don't want the first time you play against it to be in a tournament setting, because it puts a lot of pressure on. So really plan for it today, just in case somebody gets ambitious and brings it, but it certainly is not irreplaceable. Oh,
and so if we think of Pokemon as having stock associated to them, I think one of the big winners this time around with Charm being introduced, well, let's start with the losers, right? So the dark types, like Sableye, for example, was enjoying having basically no super effective damage dealt against it with fast moves. Now with Charm that changes. Umbreon, which was rising a little bit, is now kept a little bit more in check, although it's still pretty bulky. So it can deal a little bit of damage in the meantime. And then some I guess Venusaur was kind of going down a little bit with the rise of Defense Deoxys. Meganium takes neutral from Charm. Venusaur resists with its poison subtyping. So there's some trade-offs there, but Venusaur is pretty squishy. So it's one of those things where it's just choose your poison in that case. What works better in coverage? And to be honest, the biggest loser might have been Medicham because it was already lowering in its stock in favor of Defense Deoxys. With the rise of Defense Deoxys being able to counter Medicham, having some good matchups against Azumarill and such. Medicham was already on a downturn, and taking super effective damage from Charm certainly doesn't help it. So I think Deoxys going up, Medicham going down, those are all very safe assumptions for your freestyle coming up.
Sweet.
And one other I'd like to add, just briefly, is I'd say it's not on our list of the top 15 to consider, but I'd say that Fortress is on the up because Fortress was kind of fills a niche where it's able to beat that Defense Deoxys. It beats Jirachi. It beats Sableye. It walls the grass types, and it's also going to beat the Charm users. So Fortress is definitely one that I think is on the up and is worth considering.
Okay.
But not with those moves.
Yeah, I need to do a lot of move shuffling. I mean, okay, look, sorry in advance to anyone who does PvP. I'm well stocked on the TMs, so we got some to spend. We can get some like spending TM therapy through this stream.
Show us the goods, and we'll all hate you collectively.
There you go, 50 and 40. Yeah.
Wow.
I fully expect
dream.
TMs will be closer to 0 by the end of the stream.
That's fine. I try not to delete them, but like at GoFest, I was like, I'm so sorry, boys, and had to like make some space.
I mean, I think if you delete fast TMs, that's fine. I've done that before.
Yeah.
But don't ever delete those charge TMs.
Chargy boys.
Someone might hunt you down.
I don't think. Yeah. I just try not to do it out of respect because I'm like, oh, I know you guys like struggle so hard to get enough, and I'm like, no, we can't do that.
We don't respect.
I just put rare communities into other stuff.
All right. Well, why don't we now that we've got the freestyle meta kind of worked through, why don't we start working on a team, Zoe? What are your initial thoughts on a build? Where do you want to start?
Oof. It's so tricky. Probably, I guess, maybe with like the counters for the most likely picks. I think we were having a chat in the Discord earlier as well when you guys were saying like, is there a Pokemon that's on brand for me as well to have? And someone mentioned Pachirisu being potentially viable, and I was like, eyes get big. So I wouldn't mind as well having something that's a bit of a weird like wild card or mystery pick that like even if it doesn't get used in every match, that people see it in my lineup of 6 and maybe make them think twice about what they use. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to take your guys' advice and roll with it. I've got
the other thing you can consider, because it's freestyle, if you want like something to make people like think twice, is in freestyle you're allowed to use multiple of the same species. It's not super common just because there's so many available Pokemon that it's often hard to justify bringing 2 of the same one. But I just in the Go Stadium remote freestyle today, I fought against someone running double Skarmory. That was a pretty tough team to deal with.
Yikes!
And I've also seen like a double Azumarill team before, so that is
I didn't know
another
that.
thing. That is another thing to consider, is that you could potentially run a double, but we can kind of think of that duplicate or kind of funky flex pick kind of towards the end, in like that 5th or 6th slot on the team.
Cool. Sounds like a plan.
It should be
Mess
Pokemon
me up, boys.
with dots, right? Like Azumarill has dots on it, and it should be pink Pokemon.
Exactly,
To
everything
stay on
cute.
brand.
Just the absolute cutest team. No Skarmories, too ugly. No, I'm joking.
To start with Pachirisu as a part, the only thing about Pachirisu that's kind of unique is that for Pachirisu to be viable in Great League, it has to be maxed.
Yeah.
Max is out at about
I've spent all my
1,200 and so.
Yeah. I luckily have a lucky 96 or 98. I need to double check this one, but I have got one that would at least save a bit of Stardust. And it was pretty high level when I got it.
So and electric is a pretty popular type, because one of the most common things you're going to see on teams is that they're going to be packing Azumarill and Skarmory. And a strong electric type is one of the few things that'll sort of break up that combo and sort of prevent them from doing that. It's always, it's one of the safest pairings you can put together for the general freestyle meta. So being able to break that up with, say, a Pachirisu. Defense Deoxys, one of the reasons it's popular, I think, is also because it does the same thing with the Thunderbolt set. But that would allow you to sort of work there. So if we're looking for on-brand oddball picks, I don't think Pachirisu is a bad place to start.
Sweet. Sold.
Be interesting to see where everything else goes with this. Skarmory being on the rise definitely helps patch quite a bit. It seems like grass type has been very, very popular. I think of the two prominent grass types, perhaps Meganium is more on brand than its counterpart Venusaur. I don't know. You'd probably be a more
I've got both. Yeah, I have got both Meganium and Venusaur. I think my Meganium gets a bit closer to 1,500. Let me have a squiz. Yeah. I was really unlucky with the IVs and stuff for Venusaur, plus with it being before kind of like, keeping weird combination IV Pokemon. I think I had to trade for this one from Nick, and it just came in under 1,500, but I just didn't have any that I had saved from Comday.
So what does PvP 98 mean?
Oh, it's just 98%. It was just I happened to have a 98%, and I had left that in the name. But again, it's not like this, not the optimal IVs, but it was pre Great League being the thing. So again, I didn't evolve a whole bunch of the Comday moves on those earlier ones, where now I'll stock up ones that are going to be optimal for Mudkip Day, for whatever, and then evolve them then.
Right.
But yeah.
I think a good place to start might be to kind of look at like the first 2 to 3 rows on that freestyle meta graphic we have, and kind of start with maybe 1 or 2 of those that you want to use in your team, and then we can kind of build from there.
Magic, yeah. So sorry, with countering the top 3 rows. Sorry, the microphone cut.
Or like if any of those from the top 3 rows are ones that you want to pick in your team, because those first 3 rows, in my opinion, are usually like the foundation of a freestyle team. And you usually end up picking, I don't know, between like 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 from those.
Yeah.
Or I said that wrong, but you end up picking a couple from those first 3 rows and then kind of building the rest of the team around it.
Probably definitely Azumarill. I'm comfortable with that. I've used it a fair bit. And it's all kind of specced out, like ready to go. Medicham as well. My one's like good to go too. And then I think I've brought up my defense. I mean, of that top 6, I think the only one that I haven't really fiddled with the moves for would be Skarmory. Of the ones that I've got. I haven't like properly added a second move or anything onto it, Skarmory, but I have got all other in that top 6 PvP ready.
Okay, so yeah, Azumarill I think is a real good start. and then most people will either elect to bring one of either Medicham or Defense Deoxys, because those counter the steel types quite well, and then have kind of a lot of broad coverage in general.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's like one you're more comfortable with or prefer.
I haven't had much practice yet with Defense Deoxys, but I'm definitely like willing to give it a go, give it a spin. And Medicham I'm pretty comfortable with.
One consideration to make when looking, so we're kind of looking at, I think it's worth sort of pairing Defense Deoxys and Medicham as a decision, and then Altaria and Skarmory as a decision. If you went the Medicham Altaria route and have a pretty significant charm weakness, it's slightly concerning. Okay. Where if you pair the Medicham, or you at least have a way to sort of counteract that. Same with sort of reversing that and going Defense Deoxys and Skarmory. Deoxys has a better Medicham matchup. It has can potentially have a better Altaria matchup with Rock Slide. And you're sort of like, you don't leave yourself too open. You don't want to be in a position where you really want to be bringing Medicham and Altaria, but they have a charm user and you just can't afford to, you have to bench your flyer or your fighter. So I think you can sort of look at those. You're probably going to bring a Skarmory or Altaria. You're probably going to bring a Medicham or Defense Deoxys, and depending on the decision points there, it sort of starts to fill in the rest of your team, because you want to make sure that you cover those weaknesses.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm happy to roll with that then, to make a pairing out of those. So Azumarill, what you're saying, Medi and Altaria would be giving a double weakness. So I'm happy to try out the Defense Deoxys, because I think after I powered it up and I did a couple of battles with Rev when I was in the Netherlands with it. It was pretty interesting to use.
So I think one thing just to add briefly is kind of the difference between Medicham and Defense Deoxys, in my opinion, is that Medicham, I think, is a little more dangerous. If someone's not prepared, it can like run away with a match on its own. But Deoxys, I think, is a little more versatile in that it has more positive matchups across the board. So I think Medicham has more hard winning matchups, but some more hard losing matchups, and then Deoxys is a little, more in the middle.
Cool. Happy to roll with that then. Yeah.
Deoxys also punishes. You see a lot of teams potentially with Honor and Venusaur, and Defense Deoxys punishes that by packing a real psychic attack, where that team is great against Medicham. So, I do think that ultimately Defense Deoxys is the more popular choice right now, and you're probably going to see more of it. But I think that's just because of how well it's positioned.
Okay. Magic. God, I need to change up some moves on this as well.
We can.
I think the moves you have right now are good. You just want to add a second move, but you can wait until we finalize the 6, just in case we want to make changes as we go.
Sounds good. Okay, Magic. So.
And did you have a thought between Altaria and Skarmory, Zoe?
Let me have a quick squiz. So my Altaria, I think, if I can spell Altaria, my Altaria is, I don't think I've got a second move on either my Skarmory or Altaria yet. Altaria I've used more, but again, I'm happy to take your guys' advice on what you think. I know, like, for a while, as a joke, I just purposely wasn't using Skarmory in any of my teams just to be, I don't know, contrarian. And be like, haha, I don't need a Skarmory. And I'm like, I probably do at this point, really. So I'm happy to roll with either. Again, I need to practice more with Skarmory, but definitely happy for either. Yeah, so they're both, 1492, 1493. Just need a bit of a move shake up on the Skarm.
Well, you have the right two moves on the Skarm. I think both
Okay.
Altaria and the Skarm have like the main moves you'd be using. You want
Yeah.
Sky Attack on both.
Yeah.
But you just, whichever one you pick, you'd want to add that second
The
move.
new attack. Yeah.
Well, there is an argument for Altaria, and especially if you're more familiar with it, you know,
Mhm.
having a much better defense Deoxys matchup is definitely a huge plus for Altaria. And it
Mhm.
also has a better matchup against some other weird uses like Umbreon, Haunter, Lantern. I mean, it still does well against the grass types. It just gets more walled against the steels.
Mhm.
So you'd have to consider your coverage elsewhere if you're going to use Altaria. Perhaps
That
an
needs something
Azumarill
to
might
steal.
need Hydro Pump, something like that.
Okay.
Definitely some considerations to make, and this is sort of the fun part of building. Hopefully the fun part, and not the stressful part of building a freestyle team is that as we sort of fill in these blanks and make these choices, we'll have to some moves and make sure they're ready. So by choosing Altaria, you sort of open yourself up a little bit to Skarmory, in that their flyer beats your flyer in sort of a straight up fight. But you can sort of counteract that by adjusting the move set on your defense Deoxys or on your Azumarill to give it a better fighting chance there. So,
and just want to mention that someone on Twitch chat commented that Skarmory has a lot more resistances than Altaria.
True. I mean,
it's pretty healthy to perhaps assume you're going to have one of the two flyers, and then fill in whatever works best for your coverage once you have like maybe 4 or 5 filled out. I think the group here, the consensus is we all prefer Skarmory, unless someone mistake me, correct me if I'm wrong here. But if you prefer Altaria, then that would be something to keep in mind in building the rest of your team.
If the PvP boys say we all prefer Skarmory, and then I'm like, no, I want the cute Cloud, like that's pretty dumb. So
it is scientifically proven that shinies do more damage.
Exactly. It's actually 9 out of 10 doctors recommend shinies. But
I think Jimma Banks is still doing some testing. I don't know if that's fully proved yet, but
I'm down for Skarmory. Like that's A-okay.
And then Twitch chat, we also have someone saying Skarmory is best, and someone is saying a big one is Skarmory will resist Charm.
I mean, if you're down,
could we get a poll? Yeah, Skarmory versus Altaria for the chat.
Do it.
Yeah, because
build my team.
I think this is a great opportunity to see what the audience thinks. It sounds like we're happy with either. It's kind of if they think that Skarmory is just going to purely outperform the Altaria or not.
Yeah, I think the margin was closer pre-Charm. I feel like Altaria definitely takes a step back with Charm's release.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is, in Skarmory's favor is that it has a much closer Azumarill matchup.
Yeah.
Whereas Altaria kind of struggles there. And then Skarmory is much closer against Jirachi as well, where Altaria really struggles. So those are two of the bigger factors, I think, in favor of Skarmory, as well as those resistances, like that Charm resistance. But Altaria is able to beat most electric types, whereas Skarmory loses. So
you open yourself
upside.
You open yourself up to being able to use that Azumarill Skarmory core that we had mentioned, but you also open yourself up to if there's an electric type on their team, potentially running into trouble. We do have our poll up. It's Skarmory 2 in chat for Altaria. We've got right now. But I think underrate Altaria. We saw this in, I think it was Kingdom Cup as well, where it's like, well, everything in this cup it like resists and counters Altaria, and turns out good. There's definitely some value there.
And then we got some more chatter from Twitch. Someone saying Wigglytuff and Clefairy stand no chance against Skarmory. and someone else saying Charm means more steel types in the meta, which resist Altaria's normally heavy-hitting Dragon Breath. I think a lot of people are being kind of cognizant of the effect of Charm, and the fact that Altaria is weak to it, while Skarmory resists it. And I think a lot of people are also valuing all the resistances that Skarmory offers, which I think is one of the reasons that it is so popular, and steel types in general. It's just because they resist so much.
Yeah.
Speaking
I
of
love
steel
all the
types,
justification in the chat. Thank you guys, absolute legends.
yeah, there's always a lot of good discussion in those chats. But while we let this poll run, do you guys want to talk a little bit about which potential steel type she might be using for this cup?
Yeah. So the main three steel types that most people will be using are Bastiodon, Melmetal, and Probopass. Bastiodon has the most bulk. It's really tanky, but it is a lot slower of a mon. Melmetal, in kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, has the least bulk of the three, but has the fastest firing charge moves. And Probopass kind of settles in the middle. The one thing to note, though, is that Probopass and Bastiodon have that rock typing, which means they do worse against like water type moves, such as Azumarill's Hydro Pump, and also do worse against grass type moves, whereas Melmetal does better in those situations. And like, although it's a steel type, it kind of acts as like a pseudo electric, because it has a dual electric moveset. So those are kind of the main three. And then there's also like Jirachi, Steelix, and Bronzong are also worth some consideration. But the three I mentioned, I think, are a little better in general. What was that, AJ?
No, I'm just pumped about Bronzong getting Psyshock now and Bulldoze and some other coverage.
My main question for you, Zoe, is, of the sort of those main steel types, with Melmetal and Probopass and Bastion, do you have any, which one do you have more experience with? Have you played with any of them before?
It took me like 40,000 years to get a sorry, the search is not working. Get a Melmetal that had, or a Meltan that had optimal PvP IVs, and I have not evolved it yet. I do need to do that, but I've got a couple of options there for Melmetal. But I was putting it off basically because it was so useful, I think, in the first two cups, and then it dropped off for a little bit for like the themed cups, and I was like, oh, I'll do it a bit later. And I got really lazy, so whoops, my bad. And then after that, Bastiodon, I had one prepared and practiced with it a lot for Kingdom Cup, but I missed my Kingdom Cup, so I never got to fully use it in battle. Probopass I haven't evolved yet, and then Steelix I haven't used either. I have got one that I can power up and work with, but I haven't used it yet, no.
So I guess the biggest question here is kind of from your PvP experience so far, it's kind of a playstyle question of like, do you prefer things that have a little less bulk but are kind of spam charge moves more, or do you prefer things that are a lot tankier but slower?
I think I get frustrated with the slower ones personally, because it's like, come on, like you're sitting there tapping, and just like, for me, yeah, I definitely feel it when it's like when I tried out Charm for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, it's just like, it's doing heaps of damage, but it was just like that stress of like, is it gonna do enough before I get a charge move?
And it sounds to be like Melmetal.
Yeah,
Melmetal or Probopass, or Probopass. Probopass is like pretty quick too, but yeah, I think it sounds like Bastiodon wouldn't be a good choice for you, because Bastiodon is pretty dang slow.
One suggestion from the chat was to stay on brand with forgoing a steel type and using Froslass. I wonder what you guys think about that.
I mean, I'll get the professional opinion on that. I was
I
like,
think
oh,
it's-
my opinion is pretty.
I think it's viable to go without a steel type, but I'm not necessarily sure that Frostlass is well positioned
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
current meta.
I think with Altaria like dropping and usage, I'd almost say like Lantern might be the better anti-flyer substitute than Frostlass if you were looking to go like no steel.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely Lantern picks up a lot of really positive matchups and is definitely worth considering.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to start worrying about the fact that you've introduced both
2 waters, yeah.
Azumarill and Lantern into your 6, which potentially make you extremely weak to grass. So it's just a matter of sort of balancing that. And I've seen 6s, I've run 6s where I've dropped Azumarill in favor of Lantern entirely. With less meta cham in the meta, I haven't disliked it.
Zoe, have you used Lantern at all?
Yes. I've got one good and ready to go. I think I used it in the last cup.
Rainbow?
Yeah, Rainbow.
Good
I think
pick.
I used it in like every matchup. So I am
So
a fan.
it's interesting
It's
you
in
like
this.
that one because sometimes I feel like Lantern's a bit slow too and it dies like right before the charge move.
Right as you, yeah. I think I've only used it in 1 or 2 comps, or in 1 comp, and then in just practicing and mucking around. And I don't recall immediately like any too much frustration with it. I think it's those moves that are like super slow, fast moves. Those ones like tilt me.
Right. Also, Quartz, do we have result from the poll? 'Cause I missed
Skarmory,
that.
I believe Skarmory took the poll narrowly. So I think
so Skarmory, it was like 66% win rate on the poll. Yes.
Well,
Just for those people that were
there's a
saying,
lot of
"Where's her damn
contrarians
Jirachi?" Why is it-
in the chat because the data still supports Skarmory, but it is interesting to see what you guys chose.
Yeah. Why is it in my hair? It's like for everyone being like, "Why isn't she called Jirachi?" There he is. There he is. Sorry, that is like lagging hardcore. I'm not catching it. Catching it in Japan. I'm sorry if anyone who's like, "What?"
You're just you're teasing us
Chew
with
on
this
brand.
Jirachi here.
Chew on brand, did not catch it in Japan.
I'm salivating a little bit.
Sorry.
I think we've sort of narrowed us down to, for this anti-flyer, either